Hi, I'm Liz Naumovski, and I'm on the board of the Macedonian Film Festival in Toronto. And we just screened our 15th annual Macedonian Film Festival virtually due to the limitations of COVID-19. I wanted to mention that both films were sponsored by the Bitoff Foundation. Now, one of the films that we featured this year was called Willow, or in Macedonian, Vrba, written and directed by Golden Lion winner and Academy Award nominee Milcho Manchevski. Now, Milcho's Academy Award nomination film, Before the Rain, has been called one of the greatest debut films in the history of cinema. And it's on the list of the best 1,000 films ever made. So if you've never seen it, you need to go out and watch it. But he's also the creator and award-winning director of his feature films called Dust, Shadows, Mothers, and the most recent one was Bikini Moon. They were all featured at the Macedonian Film Festival as well. Now, Milch is the creator of the short forms, one called The End of Time, Thursday, Macedonia Timeless, 1.73, a video he directed for Arrested Development song Tennessee, and he also directed one of the episodes of The Wire on HBO. So I'm here today to speak to a film legend, award-winning director, writer, and my friend, Milcho Manchevski. Milcho, welcome.
Well, thank you, Liz. Thank you so much.
So, you're very welcome. Milcho, congratulations. You just returned from Spain, and Willow was being screened at the Valencia Film Festival in Spain, and you won the Silver Palm Award. So congratulations on that.
Thanks. That was good.
I also want to let people know that this is not your first award for Willow. I believe you have won 4 or 5 other awards for the film. Is this correct?
Yeah. The film won just about 2 weeks ago. Won Best Film at CineQuest in California, and before that at Fantasporto in Portugal, and won an award at the Independent Film Festival in Wellington, New Zealand.
So the best part about this is this film has worldwide acceptance and viewership, which is really difficult to get.
Yeah, I mean, especially when the film comes from a small country, and Macedonia is, as we know, miniature. But I guess in the big picture, there is no, when it comes to art and films, there is no small countries and big countries. There's small films and big films, or I should say, good films and bad films. So yeah, I mean, it's the film is being accepted and screened worldwide and liked, which is ultimately the most important thing. It's you know, being able to touch somebody's heart. That's ultimately why we make art. It's more important than all the awards of the world.
So I want to talk about that because I saw Willow twice. The second time I got more emotional and I got more invested in the film. And the film is about 3 women, and they're all going through their own personal difficult times. Now, their vision, their hardship of wanting so badly to be mothers was really, really conveyed. And you've given these women a voice, and you truly show their struggles and their tradition and their frustration and their pregnancy and loyalty and adoption. And you're a man, and you wrote the film about the control over women's bodies. Now, how did you come up with the storyline, the concept, and the information, especially to give these scenes of desperation?
Well, I mean, we're all human, and I make films about humans, about their joys and sorrows and their desires and struggles. And that's how I approach every film. In this film, it just happened so that the humans I was talking about were female humans. They were women. So I think it's important to know and to keep in mind that we're all similar. And rather than focusing on the differences, especially when it comes to to our outside appearances. It's more important to focus on what makes us similar and what unites us. So the approach was, I'm interested in these particular characters, in their drama, and I approach it the way I would approach any character, any drama in film. I've always had real strong female characters, and it's not by design. It's just that that's the characters that have found their voice through me. I'm more of a vessel for their stories than somebody who wants to impose a message or an agenda. Then, of course, when you're I guess when you're doing any film or any character, you need to do tons of research. And in this particular case, it was research that's specific to women who are dealing with issues of motherhood and pregnancy and adoption, et cetera, et cetera. So I spent a lot of time talking to people who have gone through this, talking to women who have gone through this, who have had the experiences. There are even some lines that are verbatim taken from those conversations. And it was just a blast. It was good. I really enjoy that. I enjoyed creating these strong women who did not set out to change the world, but by their example, they're heroes.
So what inspired you for this particular film? Was it the roots? Was it Macedonian women? Was it hardship? Or was it just women in general when you look at what everyone's been going through in 2019, 2018, and 2020?
I start at a different place. I start with a general feeling and with an embryo of a plot. So in this case, the feeling was I wanted to way back. The idea for this film goes way back, like 4, 5, 6 years ago, probably about 6 years ago. I wanted to juxtapose people living in a different time, people living in what basically is medieval times, with people today, their struggles and their joys and their issues, and to explore both the differences and the similarities, because ultimately we're all people. So at the beginning, it was just this general idea of juxtaposing two different time periods and people in those two different time periods. Then I sort of tripped on this idea of wanting to have children and trying to deal with it in different circumstances. And there are several different, not only these three women, but there are several different approaches to parenthood, to motherhood, with the characters in this film. And then the rest was just playing with the story, playing with the script. I love writing because I feel really free when I write. The limitations begin once you try to convert what you wrote into a film. Once you have to think about visualizing it and practical issues and casting and financing, etc. So once the story starts writing itself, I just have a lot of fun with it and see where it can go. And there are a few drafts, and I try not to impose myself on the story, but rather to listen to the characters, listen to the drama. And so basically that was the embryo, that was the beginning.
Milcho, when you start writing a story, you said it kind of, takes you wherever. Where do you usually write? I know a lot of people are, night owls and they'll write all night long. Some people write during the day. Some people come up with great concepts in the shower. It all depends on the individual and whatever inspiration they have. So where do you like, where do you write? And how long does it take you to write a script from start to finish?
That's a great question. I write everywhere, basically. The physical part of writing, usually on my laptop, either at home or I take it out to a bench or to a cafe and write with a cup of coffee. Basically, I start toying with an idea, and then once it's sort of ready, once there is a story, I write it as a 5 or 6 page story outline. And you could almost publish it as a short story. It's the synopsis of the film. And then I let it sit. I leave it alone. But I constantly jot down ideas and things on a piece of paper or open a new document, a Word document, and put them in a folder. And it takes probably a couple of years for a story to get ready, to get right. And once it's ready to go, I sit down and write a draft. First draft, which is often quite close to a finished draft. It's never the final draft, but it's say 80% there. And that process, writing the first draft, is for me it's very fast. It takes up to 2 weeks. It's about 2 weeks to write that 100-page screenplay. And then I share it with people and get some feedback and think some more. And there's always, it always goes obviously in a non-linear way. So you would think of something you're going to add to the end of Act 1 or something that's going to change the ending. And you keep either compiling those ideas until you're ready for the next draft. Or sometimes I just do another draft, which is not very different from the first one. And I don't even call them draft 1, 2, and 3. It's just different dates. So I write a lot on planes. It's funny. And even when it's, it's not that much time. Even when you're flying across the ocean, it's just several hours. But there's something very, very good about sitting on an airplane and writing, and there are no phones ringing, and there are no other distractions, nothing fun to do. So in those several hours, I usually accomplish a lot, and then wait until the next trip to do another draft. The interesting thing is, and that's something I tell my students, you don't really finish with your final draft. Your final draft is what you think you're going to shoot. But then you rehearse with the actors, and then while you're rehearsing, there are some changes, and that affects the script. I don't change that much, but if something comes out of rehearsal, and rehearsal is always more tangible, and you see how people respond, and there's feedback from the actors. So while you're rehearsing, you finish your final draft before you shoot. And your very final draft is when you're editing, because sort of by default, you refocus the story, you refocus the scenes, you drop some scenes, you shuffle other scenes, and that's where the final draft happens.
So if I remember correctly, you were shooting Bikini Moon in 2015.
I think 16, yeah.
15, okay.
I was prepping it in 15.
So you're prepping it in 2015. And okay, so you started it in 2016, and then we featured it here. So when do you take time off after you finish, feature film like Bikini Moon? Do you start on Willow right away? Do you let your brain relax a little bit? You take some painting and do painting on the side? What do you do?
I do photography, actually.
Sorry?
I do photography.
Okay.
To relax, but also as a creative outlet. The idea for Willow was older than Bikini Moon, or actually it was not older than Bikini Moon, but it was older than the film Bikini Moon. So I had that idea before I shot Bikini Moon. And as a matter of fact, I was trying to shoot it first, but the puzzle didn't come together in practical terms and in terms of financing Macedonia. I couldn't shoot there then. So I did Bikini Moon first. And as I was finishing the film, you know, while you're, once you finish the film, there's a lot of work to do, but it's not really creative work. You're just sort of shepherding the film. And that's the best time. So that's when I wrote the script. And once there was a chance to actually put it on the screen, I jumped at it. In the past, sometimes I would have bigger breaks between films, sort of by design and sort of by chance. But on this one, I was really ready, and I had a chance, and went and shot it, and had a fantastic crew and support system. This was probably the best shooting and filmmaking experience I've had in all these years. So then it quickly came out.
So I want to go back to the medieval times now, because Baba Srebra was amazing. And you hear stories, you know, from your grandparents and your parents and your great grandparents that, you know, there was the big healer in the village, and everybody, whoever had problems, would go to that healer, whether it was Dedo so-and-so, Baba Srebra. There's always somebody that was the go-to. And even nowadays, you know, you look at, there's a lot of couples who can't get pregnant. They'll find the modern day faith healer or whatever and go through all the motions. So did you speak to somebody to get that character and you know, all the sayings and everything that had to go through with Baba Srebra, or did you make them up?
I did a lot of research. I love research. It's almost more fun than directing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was research on the ground, and you talk to people. I travel. I go to villages a lot, and it doesn't even have to be in the villages. You just talk to people who have wisdom and information to give. But I also consulted literature and people who do that for a living. We had consultants who teach ethnology and history. And then, of course, you have to reconstruct a lot, because there isn't that much written information, that much detail in the records of how people lived. We decided to sort of set the film in the 16th century, or that portion of the film, but it could have been the 10th century, really, because things didn't change that much. Mm-hmm. From century to century in the Macedonian countryside at the time. Pretty much everything you hear and see in the film is based on that research. The customs and the habits and the superstitions and the words you hear, things like prekuprag rakanese batsuli.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, well, that came out of research. So when someone comes to your house, or you go to somebody's house, and you don't, I mean, obviously you have to kiss their hand if they're older, but you don't do that over the threshold. You have to either step in or they have to step outside. The threshold is a big deal
in many cultures.
Yeah, because I guess it's because this is your home, this is your house, and this is the limits, the border of the house.
Your sanctuary too.
Absolutely, yeah, and you have to treat it with due respect. So there was a lot of that. Some of the research some of the things we discovered connected to motherhood, to illegitimate children. Some of it was just shocking, mind-blowing. And then some of those things are still alive. For example, there's a scene in the contemporary portion of the film, which then we mirrored in the medieval part of the film, which is a couple circling around a rock, and they use white and red thread and basically tie it around the rock, and then they need a little belt, and she has to step over it 3 times, and they tie it around her waist with a little stone. That whole thing was lifted from what people do today at Gorodarev Kamen in Ovčepole in Macedonia, in Eastern Macedonia. And we found 2 documentaries about the event. Once a year at Gyurgevden, couples go there, and this is a way for them of, like, you know, trying to conceive if they've had problems with it. So I went to the place. I couldn't go when the ritual happens, but then I found the documentaries. Funny thing, looking at the documentaries, I discovered a couple who are family friends who had gone there years ago. I don't know, 20 years ago, and they were filmed in the documentary.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's and when you do research, and I've done it on other films as well, a lot of it for Dust, for example, you discover things that are stranger than fiction.
Well, I was going to ask you, and you know, I am very curious by nature. And my mother always said, if you don't ask, you don't know. What was shocking to you when you started doing your research and you started looking at all of those medieval curses and rituals and everything else?
Well, one thing that was strange, I guess, is how much of it is still alive.
See, that doesn't shock me.
No?
No.
No? I don't know. I mean, like the extremes to which people would go today. It's like, you know, 2 young contemporary women talking and saying, you know, maybe the reason why you can't conceive is because somebody put a curse on you.
Curse on you.
Curse on you on a stone and hid the stone under your bed, and you have to find the stone and smash it. Okay. So that was one area. Another area was how society dealt with, and this went through until the middle of the 20th century, even the second half of the 20th century, how they dealt with illegitimate children. So those were like the strange things. Another thing I like about doing research and using it in my films is that way you confront archetypes and cliches, and you get to question them.
Right. So you are a very different type of storyteller. You always take old and mesh it in with the new, and there's 3 stories. And I believe is it called Cubist storytelling?
I came up with the term.
Okay, well then it is called that.
What I meant was that it's fragmented the way the images in a cubist painting are. Sometimes you look at a cubist painting and the object is portrayed as if you're seeing it from different angles.
Right. So
in some of my films, I use that in terms of how the story is told. So you see it from one perspective, then you see it from another, then really from another. That's something that's done very often. Not very often, but it's done. It's not brand new. But I tried, especially in Dust, I tried to take it a couple steps further.
So when you do that with your storytelling, what do you expect from the viewer? Do you want them to absorb the history, the characters, the culture, the relationships? Because you're bringing in so many different layers and so many different functions that you really have to think. Your movies are not like a Hollywood blockbuster where you're just sitting there and watching people chase each other. There's so many different layers where your brain has to be turned on so that you don't miss anything. You don't miss a saying or a nuance or whatever it is. So clearly they're layered. So what do you expect from the viewer?
I expect them to go on a journey and to enjoy the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And our expectation from a work of art, including a film, I guess, is to get emotionally involved. So to me, that comes first. It's paramount. I guess it's more important than the quote unquote message, or the whatever other agenda you may have. When as a consumer of art, as a viewer, as a reader, that's what I want to experience. That's what I enjoy experiencing in other people's films or music or books. And thus, that's what I also try to do in my work. So I think, or I hope, that my films are both accessible and rich and more profound. So if you don't want to get too involved for whatever reason, hopefully the film, you go with it and you have the emotional experience. But if you want to explore the detail and to explore the thinking behind the relationships and behind how the story twists and turns, hopefully there is enough for you to sink your teeth into as well.
Okay, so let's sink our teeth into the symbolism of Willow, because there is a lot there's a lot there. I'm going to just touch upon the three. The turtle, because you have the turtle in the medieval section and you have the turtle in the modern day Skopje. And turtles are known for being slow and calculated. Why did you use the turtle in both scenes?
Tell you the truth, I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Which doesn't mean that it's frivolous. It just felt right.
Okay.
You know, I mean, as a director, you make hundreds of choices every day. You know, the art director comes to you and says, "Do you want this wall green or yellow?" You pick this actor or that actor, and makeup person comes in and says, "Should I cut his hair?" And you make all of those decisions, and some of them are rational, but a lot of them are not. And as long as you are following a strong idea, a strong instinct that comes from a unified vision, I think you're good. So with the turtle, it just felt right. It was like, please find me a turtle. I think we want to use it in this scene. So it wasn't, there's no rational agenda behind it, which doesn't mean that it's just thrown in there. It just means that it comes from a place that's probably a little more unconscious or subconscious.
Okay.
Which is, I think, what you should be doing when you're making art.
You're right. Okay. So what about the apple? Apple is knowledge, love, or evil. So.
Well, with the apple, it's like we know the symbolism of the apple. And at least in Macedonia, at least when I was growing up, there was sort of like the basic fruit. It's not a banana, it's not exotic, it's not apricot, which lives only for a couple of weeks a year. So it's sort of basic. So you want it there. And again, it just felt right. It felt like, okay, it's telling me something. It's laying all these options for the viewer um, to utilize when thinking about it, if they think about it. What's also important, I think, is that it should feel organic to the scene. It shouldn't feel like, oh, now here's a symbol. What I wonder what that means. It should really be an organic part of the scene.
And of course, Willow, the name of the film, Verba, which is immortality. They grow everywhere, so they're strong, they're sturdy.
Yeah, that one was a little more premeditated, I guess. Again, it's what you described. They grow everywhere. They're sad. There's all not about
Well, they're
it.
weeping willows, right? They're
Even
crying all the time.
in English, yeah, it's a weeping willow, and so it's sad, but it's vital. It's sad, but it survives. Uh, the branches seem to go down, but they don't break, or they reach for the root. And those would probably be some of the reasons why willow is it's present in so many different cultures in the folklore historically, in Staroslovenska mythology, but also other cultures. So that one was, yeah, all of that. Plus, it looks so great.
It's a beautiful tree.
Yeah, and you can also, have it in the city, have it out in the countryside. Um,
In every era as well. It could be medieval, it could be modern. It fits right in.
Right, right. And then in one scene we had it in a needlepoint on the wall. So that was the fun
Missed
part.
that one.
It's very fast.
Okay, so your actors, Baba Srebra, I believe she was in Mothers as well.
Yeah.
I think she was in Dust too.
She had a very small part in Dust.
Yeah, but I mean, how do you choose your actors?
I go through a long casting process. Not in her case, because that's Ratka Radmanovic.
She's awesome.
I've worked with her a few times before. She's a retired stage actress from Bitola, and she's just fantastic. She's incredible, both as a person and as an actor. And obviously, she looks right for the part, which in my book is not that important. It's what really matters is how good the actor is. So in her case, I knew that she was going to be Baba Srebra from get-go. But with everybody else, what I do is I just go through a long casting process. First, there's the casting director. In this case, it was Milcho Manchevski. I worked with her before. On Bikini Moon, it was A.V. Kaufman, for example. We sit down and we talk about the characters and the kind of actors I'm looking for. And I'm looking for actors with who control, who own the actress craft. So it's not about the looks. It's not about whether they're famous or not. It's like how much they can transform. And I listen to them the way I listen to music. It's like I believe this line when you say it. I don't believe this other line. So are you telling me the emotional truth of your character as experienced by you, the actor? And basically, we have a wide casting call with a lot of actors, dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds of actors. And the casting director videotapes them. I look at the tapes. Then we invite some back. And then we go into the next round. I usually join by the third round. Usually 6, 7 rounds, takes about 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
And by the end, you've sort of rehearsed the part already. with the actors who get the job, get the part. And then we do a proper rehearsal. It's usually about 3 weeks for a feature film, where we sit down and just do the scenes in the order they will be in the film, not in the order we will shoot them. So that that process is, for the actor, is very helpful for me and for the story and for production, because then when you come to the set, when you have to deal with a lot of logistics and technical issues, and the sun has gone down, an actor is stuck in traffic, somebody broke their arm, you can concentrate on those practical problems or issues, and you've already solved most of the performance issues beforehand when you had the peace and quiet to work on the performance. Or as Berkman would say, rehearsal is creation, filming is recreation.
That's a good one. That's actually really good. Okay, so Alfred Hitchcock was really big on making cameo appearances, and here you are. I think, yeah, there you are. in the poster in the pharmacy. So you always make a cameo appearance in every one of your films as well. And as I said, Alfred Hitchcock was big on that. Who inspires you? Whether it's a director or artist or painter or photographer, who inspires you in your work all the time?
Different people, different artists. I mean, this particular concept of appearing in a cameo in each of your films, that I ripped off from Hitchcock 100%, except that I don't act in my films. I always appear in still frames.
The still.
Yeah, so the one you showed, it's a poster where I advertise coffee. I'm a doctor on a soap opera advertising, selling coffee called Baba Matza. And after my grandmother, who was a big coffee aficionado.
That's awesome.
As far as inspiration, I mean, it could be a writer. I like Sebald. I like Kundera. I like Kurt Vonnegut, and he does a lot of that fractured cubist storytelling, or that combines, he calls them, or you can call them mosaics. Robert Rauschenberg does those, or Picasso and Braque did some of those. And film is the structure of film is, you can compare it to music. So it's also about good music that I listen to. There's a contemporary DJ named
DJ someone.
JJJ. I lost the name.
It's okay. It'll come. You know what? It'll come to you when I'm saying thanks for coming. Goodbye.
Actor. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about music. How do you choose music for all of your films? Because our music, the Macedonian music, is rich in culture, and when you listen to the tapan and the drum, it makes your blood dance. So how do you choose each song? I mean, I realize that in this one you had Makedonsko devojče, but it was a newer version.
No, actually, it was the same version. It was just probably filtered differently to hear it as if it's played in a cab. You look for what is appropriate, what fits, what helps, what lifts the scenes that need music. Usually, I don't think about music until about halfway through editing. I mean, I think about it in general terms, in like, is this going to sound like traditional film music with regular classical orchestra, or is it going to have influences from the Macedonian folklore, as in Willow or in Before the Rain, or are you going to use some of? I always use Macedonian folklore, but in different ways. Sometimes it's the way it has been arranged by the composer and by the conductors, where it sounds as if it's just a regular Western tune. Western, I mean, from not cowboys, but Western.
North American.
North American, Western European. Um, so, I mean, you just like look and you work on it scene by scene, and this one needs something soaring, this one needs something very quiet that you barely hear, this one needs something funny, this one needs something that would contrast what you see in the picture, and then you try different things. And sometimes it's very fast, you find it right away. Sometimes you try many things and you drive the composer crazy, and they keep trying. Sometimes they create something for one scene and it doesn't work there, and you take it to another scene and it actually works there, so you take it there. Here I had several things that were specific. One was the Roma party at the end, where I asked Kirill Tchaikovsky, the composer, to create something that, I mean, he's worked with Roma musicians before on some of his own music, but here I asked him to create something very rickety, something sort of beat up, the way a band of like 3-4 almost street musicians would play it at a party. Other bits of music in the film, Igor Vasiliev created something that was very classical, cello dominated, for portions in the second story that are very internal. And that way, then you sort of look at the landscape, how the music moves through the film, how it changes, rearrange things if necessary, and that's that.
So I want to talk about 2020 right now. We're all in COVID. The whole entire world is dealing with COVID. Most people are working.
Nicholas Jar, that's his name.
Who was it?
Nicholas Jar. The
Okay.
DJ, couldn't remember. There you go.
Yeah, I knew you'd come up with it.
I listen to him all the time. Sometimes you just like freeze.
Yeah, we all go through that. You know, that's just part of life, especially now because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are working from home, and it's easy for them to work from home. However, people in the arts are having a really hard time. They're struggling. I mean, you don't have any more live theater. You don't have any opera. You don't have film goers. You don't get the bums and seats in theaters anymore because of COVID. So for you, you had to launch a film worldwide. How did you deal with that, since you couldn't just travel around the world?
It was tough. It was tough. I mean, we had the world premiere and then the theatrical premiere in Macedonia before the pandemic. And then as the film was gearing up to travel, the COVID happened. And then it slowed it down for a while. And some festivals just outright canceled. Other festivals did hybrid editions. Some just went online, fully online. CineQuest in San Jose in California was an interesting example. They started in March. They were supposed to go for 2 weeks, I believe. And then after the first week, they stopped. and then they resumed about 7 months later online as a virtual festival. And I was going to travel, but then obviously it didn't happen. So in the end, we won an award there, and the ceremony was virtual. There were like a few of us on Zoom, and, and we got to say thank you.
Thank God for Zoom.
On the other hand, there's Valencia last week, and they even in spite of everything, in spite of the curfew in Spain, they did have a I guess it was hybrid. They showed some films in the theater where I guess there were just less viewers than usual. It was like 30%, 50% capacity. And they really wanted us to go, and you know, I'm ready. You know, I'll brave it. I like that kind of a challenge. I even go to war zones. I went to Sarajevo. I went, and I'm really glad I did. It was, and then at the end they had a real ceremony for the awards. Again, with not that many people in the audience, but it was good. And for me personally, I get to appreciate this kind of in-person contact a little more. I'm not a big fan of just doing that much and red carpets and meeting people and ceremonies and stuff. I like that to a point, but then, you know, it's more important that the film is finished and that people see the film. But now I get to appreciate it a little more after going most of the year without festivals.
So my final question is two parts. One is, I know that you have a brand new film that you're working on, and it's called Kaimuk, which is an incredible title. How do you film during COVID? Because, you know, you hear in the news that there's so many feature films that are out there right now, and they're taping them, and one person tests positive and the entire production is shut down, and then everyone has to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I want you to please tell us about Kaimuk, whatever you can, and what, if you have started production, how is that going because of all of the parameters around COVID?
Well, Kaymak is a black comedy.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
It's a black comedy.
Okay.
It's an absurdist comedy.
Okay.
So it's a little different from Willow, for example, even though there are moments of humor in Willow as well. It's a contemporary story. It takes place in Skopje, even though it could be any big city anywhere in the world. And again, it's a co-production like all of my films. So far, it's Macedonia and Denmark officially, but we expect a couple more countries to join the co-production, and we're still in the early stages, so we won't be shooting until, I'd say the later part of the first half of next year. So in about, what is it, 8 months. So that's when we would go into production. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. I'm not sure exactly how we will do it. I mean, obviously we'll follow the protocol, whatever the protocol is by then. We will learn from other productions, both in Macedonia and internationally, that would have shot by then. I know that in Denmark, for example, they are filming, so we will learn a lot from our partners there. And I mean, it's not going to be easy. I was just talking to Josh Weinstein, who was the director of photography on Bikini Moon, and he is in California now doing a lot of production. Most of it is commercials, and he was sharing his experiences, how it's strange. It's like you know, everybody has masks and everybody is social distancing, and then everybody leaves the room and the actors take off their masks and do their thing. And it's easier on commercials or short forms because it's only a few days. But on feature where you shoot a month or 2 months and you prep a couple months before, and you have a lot of day players, people who come in for a day, and it's how do they deal with the isolation for the period, and someone like that can shut down the production for a couple of weeks, which is obviously a big issue both creatively and financially. So you have dozens and dozens of people who, in that case, knock on wood, would be doing nothing for a couple of weeks. Not to mention all the health issues, the health worries. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm an optimist in general, so I think by then things will get better. There will be a sort of a rhythm of how things are done, and we would just pick up on that. And we'll just try to control it to the best of our ability.
So what is your estimated time of arrival for Kaimuk so that we can all watch it at the Macedonian Film Festival?
Well, it's going to take all of 2021 to make it. And then it's going to be up to the sales company and the producers and the distributors to decide when they want to release. So ETA 2022, I guess.
Perfect. So I am looking forward to watching it. And Milcho, I really want to thank you for the time that you took to speak with me. I know we had a little bit of trouble with scheduling, but I really appreciate the chat with you. It was so great to see you again.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. And I would do anything for the Macedonian Film Festival in Toronto.
Thank you, Milcho. And if anybody is looking for it, Milcho has a monograph, and it is available on our website at macedonianfilmfestival.com, and it's $40 Canadian. So please, it's a wonderful, wonderful book, and I think you'd all be really, really interested in it. Thank you.